building, and thank you for coming early and listening to directions. The other piece of advice I'm going to give you, and I am a little bit bossy, is to actually, if you open that tote, there's a notebook and a pen in it. So this is going to be a very action-packed panel. If you've been to any of our IB events before, you will know this, that you will leave the doors today taking at least 5 pieces of educational content. Sorry guys, that really puts you up for a challenge. But before we get started, I wanted to introduce myself so you don't think I'm some random person talking up here on stage. My name is Reisa Elden, and I'm here on behalf of IB, which is a community and business management tool meant to help you designers streamline your business and help you take your business to the next level. So through IB, obviously you can create proposals and tear sheets and FF&E schedules and all of the logistical administrative stuff, which makes you appear very professional to your clients. But what's really near and dear to my heart especially is the fact that we've been able to create this amazing community of designers that have come together via our Facebook group, in real life, not in real life, via Instagram, and built this bond with each other to help each other really take their business to that next level. We believe in community over competition, and that's really what's happening every day within our community. So please make sure you introduce yourself to your neighbors. Make sure you say hi if you're using IB. If you're not using IB, of course, come pop by our designer lounge. There's cocktails, there's margaritas. We're very excited to be here at Market. It's a great time. We're at the beginning of the year to really interact and get motivated and get inspired by your peers. Other 2 things that I need to cover, and then I'll stop talking, I promise, is one, thank you to Zuo for furnishing this space today. We really appreciate that. And thank you to Las Vegas Market, and especially Kimberly Porter for hosting us and helping this be possible. So without further ado, I'm going to talk a little more and just introduce you to our panelists. And also, after the panel, you'll probably need a drink, so don't worry. The cocktails are just 2 escalators above you in C498 in the Palacheck showroom. So definitely make sure you can join us. I know you're going to have a lot of questions, so all of our panelists will be there to answer all of your questions today and at that Palacheck. All right, so today we're going to be talking about creative business strategies to boost your profitability. And what does that mean? It means a whole lot of things, to me especially. And we're going to cover project management efficiencies, scaling your business and goal setting, branding and marketing strategies, and passive income. So we hand-picked out some of our finest designers, and we're very excited to bring you this panel today. If you don't know Lindsey, this is Lindsey Borchard of Lindsey Borchard Design, and she is based in Los Angeles and has a background as an artist, which allows her to design spaces that are intentional and unique to every client. From mixing earthy textures with bold textiles, curating vintage vines with contemporary elements, Lindsey pulls her inspiration from the beautiful California landscapes she calls home. Lindsey designs spaces that are not only filled with beauty and intention, but are also functional for the everyday family. Her work can be seen in Rue, My Domain, just to name a few. And if you're not following her Instagram, I highly recommend you pull out your phone and you do that. And then we have Anastasia Casey, the founder of Identite Collective. Anastasia is the creative director and founder of Identite Collective. She specializes in branding, web design, and Instagram management for interior designers. She knows a whole lot about the industry and actually created this amazing guide to Las Vegas Market for us. So if you need a copy of that, just shoot me over an email. And she definitely creates digital spaces as refined and inviting as the physical spaces that her clients design. So if you think about what you're doing in your client's home, she does that for you on the Instagram front, on all your marketing fronts. Anastasia and her work have been featured in Forbes, S&P Living, and many more publications. Again, you're gonna wanna follow her on Instagram. And then we have Mikel Welch, and we're so excited that he's here with us today. He is an accomplished interior designer, self-made. Mikel worked his way out of the Detroit suburbs and through the design industry to the top where he owns his own interior design firm. By night, Mikel is a sought-after television personality, appearing on programs like HGTV's Design Star, The Steve Harvey Show, there's so many, you guys, Real Housewives of Atlanta, The Talk, and most recently, Trading Spaces. Mikel makes a name for himself as a design expert on the small screen. So I'm sure you're tired of me talking. Let me go ahead and get started with our questions. And make sure you have those notebooks out, because there's going to be a lot of info. All right, Lindsey. I feel like this has been a big year of learning and maximizing your overall profitability. Can you tell us what you've learned in terms of project management efficiencies over the last 6 months? Where are you at with your billing structures?
Well, a lot has changed in my business. I was a solo person for the last a little over a year and a half, and I recently just brought on a project manager. So project management has really shifted in our business. So it's taken, we've really tried to use the last 3 months. It's only been 3 months since she's been on board, but we had to restructure from me just doing all the project management and the design and everything to really what she's going to be taking on, and really putting our processes solid. So ID plays a big part in that. I mean, really just making sure that we're utilizing every little bit, like every aspect of ID really helps. Excuse me. And then I think just making sure that we're not kind of, I have my set of project management. She has what she's doing in project management, and it's hard as a business owner to kind of let go of some of that to somebody. But you really have to in order to really, for me, I feel like make sure that we're doing it right and that I'm not micromanaging her, and so I can just trust her that she's doing what she needs to do in order to make the business successful.
So the action word I'm hearing there is delegate.
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 Yes.
So
for
in
sure.
the last 12 months, and now since she's been with you the last 3 months, you've been able to delegate. And how does outsourcing play a role in that piece of the puzzle where you can really stay focused on design and really get your processes? What does it look like? You have a branded contract. You have, where does that come into play where you can maybe potentially build that fee out to your clients, that you're not seeing the dollars go out, you're seeing the dollars come in, and you're maximizing your overall profitability?
Well, for me in the very beginning, outsourcing was really the way I was able to handle everything. I outsourced my renderings, I outsourced branding, I outsourced marketing, but it was a slow build. It wasn't everything all at once at the beginning. I really feel like the first thing that you need to do is get your branding. It's like, it should be the number one thing. I put money into that, a good website, making sure that I had, my color scheme and my fonts, and just, it makes you look more professional. It kind of sets the tone to where your business is going to go, and then you don't really have to think about that anymore, and it just kind of evolves over time too. But that was the first thing that we outsourced. And then I think as time goes on, you're going to realize what you can't really handle anymore. So for me, I couldn't handle spending time on the renderings because I had to move on to the next design of another client. So I outsourced those renderings to somebody that we still outsource. And then, I was very heavily involved in social media in the very beginning. It's how my business started. But it came to a point where I needed to grow it, and I needed to have somebody else control it with me so that I can really focus on design. And that's where Anastasia came into my life. And it's, just been a great experience. And then again, it was to the point where I couldn't take on more design clients. I had to figure out how I was going to scale my business, how I was going to create more profitability, and make sure that I can not just have 5 clients for 6 months. And how I was going to do that was hiring on a project manager. And then now that is kind of set in stone on how we run that side of the business, we just brought on a junior designer. So it was like, okay, what's the next step of where I need help? And that was in design. And so I think it's not, you have to kind of do baby steps. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And for me, I really want to make sure that I do it the right way, and I feel like I won't make as many mistakes if I do it. I really take time to really think about what do I want my business to look like and how I'm going to achieve that.
And mapping it out and setting milestones. Like you said, you can't take everything all in at once.
Yep.
You have to build out those project management strategies so that you can then afford to take on or outsource the social media. And everybody gets so overwhelmed. You've been hearing when I say social media, it gives me anxiety. And
well, it's a full-time gig, and I, also have 2 young kids, and I can't balance it all. So something has to give, And so it's one of those things where I felt like I mean, it was a very long decision. It took me a year to really come to terms with this is something I need to let go of. I did a lot of research, and that was one of the hardest things to let go of, I would have to say.
But
I mean, she does a great job. Yeah, social media and marketing and all that, because I just felt like it was such a big part of my business. You know, the personal, it's the way I've connected with everybody, and I didn't want to lose that. I didn't want people to feel like I'm not there anymore. I'm still very much involved and still very much commenting and talking to people. I just have help curating my feed now and making sure that it stays on brand and making sure the newsletters go out and that we're, you know, revealing projects on a timely manner. And I mean, that has to happen, and I can't do it all, you know?
So the second word I'm hearing is outsourcing. Outsourcing has been key. And as designers, we know that we want to be at a 40% gross profit margin. And over the last 12 months, I've seen you take on smaller jobs and to full home remodels. How have you honed in and refined the type of client that you want to take on that is that bigger client where you can do start to finish, pick the fixtures and drop in a custom sofa at the end?
Well, again, it's baby steps. I mean, I think the main thing is the confidence I had in the beginning to the confidence that I have now as a designer is huge. And I felt like in the beginning, I couldn't take on those clients, and I'm glad I didn't. I had a few, but I made a lot of mistakes, and I learned from that, and so that's great. And I feel like my clients now are obviously getting the very best of what I know, but in 2 years from now, I'm gonna know a lot more than I do now. And so I feel like going through those 1 room, 2 rooms, styling things, you know, starting with the bathroom remodel, helped me in knowing exactly how I'm gonna, first of all, the process of not only the design, but the business of how am I gonna really, you know, it's just not picking pretty fixtures. It's like, this is not a hobby for me. I had to really make that decision quick. Is this gonna be something that I'm just gonna do as a side hustle, or am I gonna make it into a business? And for me, it was very clear that this is gonna be a business. And so how am I gonna achieve that? And I set little goals. By the end of this year, I wanna have clients that, you know, it's a 3-room minimum. Now we have hourly minimums that you have to meet, budget minimums, you know, I'm just not there. That's not what I want my business to be. And if I get those inquiries, I have other designers that I can recommend for them.
Which is great. So the other thing is that you essentially learn to say no.
Yes. Well, that's a big thing for me this year, is really saying no, really figuring out who my clients are. Because at the end of the day, you have to listen to your gut. And you know, I have a client right now that I should have really listened to my gut, because it's not fun. It's not, you can't really think about the money, which is hard to kind of process that, but I now have a client and I can't make room for another client that I can potentially make more or just have more creative freedom. And you really have to think about just that as a whole, I think, for your business. Like, really, what do you want to be doing? What do you want to be designing? What kind of clients you want? And that's different for everybody, you know? And I think in the beginning, you kind of have to, for a little bit for me, in the very beginning, I had to say, well, what kind of business do I want to be in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years? And that's going to evolve. But for me, I never want to be a really big design firm. I don't want to be micromanaging people. I still want to be the design firm. So for me, no matter how many years I'm in business, it's always going to stay a small boutique firm.
How many of you guys have taken on a client that you shouldn't have taken on? So there's our, everybody! I've done that too in my former life. So I think the biggest takeaways and the step 1 of this panel is learning to outsource, utilize your design tribe, your network, learning to say no. Like, can we all give an amen to like learning how to say no? And even if you don't, you can free up that much more space to find the right client.
And it takes time. We're still figuring out what that ideal client is. I mean, we just had this conversation of like, really, what is that client? Who are we really looking for? And it's always going to change. as you change as a designer and what you're really into. We still do a lot of furnished jobs and some remodels. Now we're getting more into the bigger remodels. And so sometimes you're gonna want more remodels, sometimes you're gonna want more furnishings. Some years you might want smaller clients and some years you might want bigger, but you have to kind of have a clear path as really who that client is.
Totally, it's setting the intention, writing that down, writing out your goals. I really believe that will help you get what you want. And I hear so many people are, I tried this, I tried that. It's like, focus on yourself and figure out what you want, and then what are the ways that you're going to build out your marketing to achieve your goals to get there. So, Mikel, I know you have a very diverse set of clientele. Can you tell us how you keep your ducks in a row, and what has been your biggest aha moment in 2018?
So I think for me, what makes my design background a little bit different is not only do I have residential clients, but balancing television, and I also do a lot of commercials, and so I do a lot of set design. And so for me, going back to your key word, it's outsourcing. I have a lead designer, who manages a lot of my actual design projects just because I don't have time for that. I'm going to be very open and honest. I'm stretched in so many directions. I am probably home. I say I live in New York, but me and Anastasia were just talking about this. Like, I'm home 5 days out of the month. So I don't even really see my apartment. And so a big part of that is the outsourcing, because I do a lot of commercial projects where I'm in charge of specifically this brand called Inspired Closets, and I do merchandising for 42 of their stores. So even when I have an article, a lot of times I don't have time to write an article. So I have someone who oversees my voice, and so she knows specifically, what I like, how I want it written. She'll send it to me, and I have that overall approval. But for me, a lot of it is outsourcing, just because I do not have that time. It's not that I don't want to, but my time is stretched. So going to your other question in terms of my biggest aha, my biggest aha for me, and I'll be very honest, was learning what I want and what I don't want. I have been working in interior design for over 13 years. And I would love to say that I love my clients, but my clients, I deal with a lot of celebrities, and they're draining. Like, they're great on television, but it's a lot. It is an awful lot. And so for me, my biggest aha moment was learning when to say no. And is it a matter of would I make $80,000 off a project? Great, but am I gonna have to do this project for 2 years because this lady's gonna keep dragging it on? It's like, it's not worth it. At the end of the day, I'm making $100 a week. It sounds great in the beginning, but I had to learn when to say no. And I'm learning to wean clients off, and it's tough because for me, a big part of my business, I feel like my television is its own monster. That pays for itself. But I have to do my design clients or keep my design clients because that pays for my assistants. And so for me, it was just learning that balance of, learning to say no, and you don't have to take on every single project that's not going to be advantageous for you. So if you're going to cause me a headache, I don't want to take it on. And it goes back to what you said, Lindsey. It's just learning. In that first 10 minutes when you talk to that lady or that wife, that housewife, she is going to give you a lot of issues. She's going to text you at 10 o'clock at night. And it's like learning when to say no. So I would say that is my biggest aha moment for 2018 going into 19, is learning to say no and not being afraid to delegate. And I think a lot of times, designers, we want to own everything. We want our hands in every single part of the pot. And
because you're a perfectionist.
Yes, but you cannot own it all. For me, I have a publicist, I have an agent, I have a manager, and it's like I have all of these people, but I need them. I don't like paying them, but I need them. Or me and my mom, she's here in the first row. We had a conversation, a couple of months ago, and I told her it takes a lot to be Mikel Welch. It takes a lot, but the payoff in the end is so worth it when you delegate and you get other people to help you, so you don't feel like you're just taking it on. And it's a lot. it's overwhelming. It really is.
Totally. And so what I hear a lot is outsourcing. And so now the dreaded question is outsourcing to hiring. Hiring can be a challenging investment for a designer, and I feel like everybody in the audience is giving me the vibes of like, okay, here I need to hire somebody, but they see dollar signs going out the window. Like, how am I going to turn that bake it into my margin so that I'm actually making money and that I can have billable hours when I'm not physically doing the work? So I think the good question to ask is, what would you hire out first? Like Lindsey, you kind of talked about it. And Anastasia, you have a different type of business, but it's interesting because you still have to hire people out just like you are an interior designer, creating digital spaces or creating the same thing. Tell us a little bit about what you think designers should hire out first, because I'm curious to get your input.
Yeah. So I started in this official Identite Collective role about 2.5 years ago, and it was definitely just me. I made a conscious decision to have a contract assistant with me, like she was 15 to 20 hours right at the beginning, because I felt like it was going to be so much easier to ease into having hired employees if it's kind of been, you've never had that money in your pocket in the first place. And I was able to scale a lot faster right at the beginning. So for me, it was someone helping with like design files. But what I describe to all of my clients in the design business is take 10% of what you make, what you actually take home from a design project, and put that back into your marketing budget. So when I say marketing budget, maybe that is literally paying a design assistant who knows InDesign or Canva and can do your social media graphics, or maybe it is literally hiring a firm like my own, or maybe it's running local Instagram ads targeted very selectively in geolocations. But if you just like put that into your line sheet, mark it up, know that you're going to be putting 10% into your business, add that to what you're charging people. That's what it costs to run your business. So if you just start out with 10% going in, it's a number that you can always know that is there. And as your business scales, that 10% scales as well. But that's a really healthy number that seems like you can bite that little bit off and chew it and swallow it. It might be a little gristly at first, but it becomes very normal, and then it's just like, okay, that's the cost of running my business, and you'll see that 10% come back to you exponentially very, very quickly.
That's great advice. Other things that I want to cover before we get into the nitty-gritty. As you know, and I talked about, we totally believe in community over competition. I want to understand, Lindsey, how really building your design tribe has helped you be more profitable and take your business to that next level.
Well, it's been huge because as designers, when you first start off, you're all by yourself. You're alone, and you don't have people to bounce off ideas or really anything. And so for me, it was really crucial to find other people that were at a similar stage in my business, where I was at, maybe 1 or 2 years, ahead or behind me, so that we can kind of go on this journey together. And so I have several designer friends that I really will text and say, I don't know what to do, can you help me with this? And what do you do? Or, down to like, what's your favorite black paint color? Because she doesn't like the 3 that I chose, or how are you charging? Or how are you billing for this? Because there's no set way how this industry works. And so you really have to find what works for you. I reached out to a designer very early on and just kind of asked her questions about how she ran her business, and I tried it out and it did not work for me. So it doesn't mean that, that's gonna work for you or it might not work for you, So I just kind of take all the information, but it's crucial because having somebody that you can call or that you can text or that you can email, there's enough clients to go around, and everybody's gonna have their thing that they're good at. So for me, having somebody who's really good at remodels is really key, because I feel like I'm not there yet in remodels. Or just kind of sharing, we're all here at Market, we're all seeing the same stuff. So I don't feel like I need to hide who I use, because you're gonna walk around and see it. I definitely think that there's some things that you want to keep because it's, you don't want everything to be the same, but at the same time, we're all looking at the same stuff. We're all doing the same thing. We all have similar clients. We all have similar experiences. And I think by sharing it, we're only going to make the industry stronger. And, you know, like there's so many people that I talk to that are like, well, I'm not marking up and I give my discount to all of my, you know, my clients. But that's only hurting our industry because they're gonna then maybe they have a bad experience with you and so they want to find another designer. Now here I'm coming in saying, well, yeah, I mark up and we're gonna share that discount.
Can we say purchase fee, not markup? You know,
it's all the same. It's all the same.
But it's different because when you do say markup, people think that you're marking
well,
up.
I don't say markup, I say I share my discount with you.
Exactly.
Discount is the key word
but I feel
that
like
people want to
sometimes
hear.
designers are scared to use the terminology markup because they think
Yes.
the client's not going to take them on. But if you rephrase how you say that in your contract and you call it a simple purchase fee, that it's a cost of doing business. You're not running, if this is not a hobby, you have overhead, you have employees, it's a cost of doing business. Yeah, sure, you go to market and you build relationships with vendors and you get great discounts, but that doesn't mean you just pass off. And exactly what you said, your designers that are doing that are hurting the industry.
But exactly, because it sets the tone for clients who might not then work with that person, you know, and then they go, well, oh, I worked with a designer who didn't mark up. It's like, well, sorry, I don't do that, you know? So I think as a collective, it's good to have people around you that you can just have a support as, you know, educational reasons, as friends, to vent. I mean, how many times do, you know, have I texted somebody being like, oh my God, I just need to vent about this client because, you know, you're gonna understand it. So I think it's really crucial.
And I used to run, I worked for a small interior design firm and I was very isolated in my office. I think it's nice to feel that sense of camaraderie and to feel like you're not alone, that, you know, you're in this together and you guys have the same goal. There's enough business to go around for everybody. And my key question, and I know part of it, obviously I know you've met people through the Ivy Facebook group, but besides the Ivy Facebook group, what other mediums have you used to really host local events and host dinners and really, because I know...
Well, Instagram has been number one.
That's amazing.
I'm not afraid to DM somebody. I answer most of all my DMs that I can. And I think just taking that step to just say hi. I admire your work. Can you, you know, if I have time, I'll answer. Sometimes I can't get to it or I'll get to it like a week later. But I try to answer my DMs. I still, you know, to people who I admire have questions, will say, hey, can you help me with this? I saw that you posted about, you know, this remodel that you're doing. I'm doing something similar. How did you get, you know, that mirror in that position or whatever it may be, you know? But I think that just not being afraid to put yourself out there, you know, be really surprised about how much support that you can get.
So there's another step for you guys to write down is interaction, networking. I live in San Francisco, although I'm very rarely there, and I force myself to go to events in San Francisco that are happening so I can mix and mingle and build my own design tribe. Yes, I'm not a designer, but really getting out there, hosting events. Lindsey's hosted events, hosted dinners. I've seen it happen, and just you're going to Vegas, meet up with 10 of your designer friends, and go to dinner. Have the conversations, open the lines of communication, because, and I've personally witnessed your business grow, but I think that with that, you build a sense of confidence. And that confidence has led you to take on these bigger design jobs, knowing like, hey, I could call Kimberly in LA and she can give me feedback if I don't know, or she can mentor me along this process. So that's really good advice. And I think another question I wanted to ask Mikel is, how did you position yourself? Because you talked about it a little bit earlier, to get the gigs like Oprah, like Trading Spaces. I know that you started as a designer in Detroit and you've grown your business. So what are actionable steps that you could tell us from early on of how you got from point A to point B?
Okay, so now, remember when she was talking about nitty gritty? This is like that ugly part that I'm really gonna talk about. So I think for me, I'm very blessed in the opportunities that have been presented before me. But I think for me, what has really worked has been the fact that I'm willing to do what other people are not willing to do, in the sense that, you know, I could sit up here and tell you that it's glamorous, and that I was like able to, you know, trade in spaces. Yeah, it was great. But what you didn't see was me sleeping in a 300 square foot apartment with a roommate and my dog. on like little small cots, barely any food to eat. But I think for me, the biggest thing has been positioning myself with the right people. Like if I had to just think about everything that I've done up until this day, it was, I didn't feel like I had a design portfolio that was strong enough in order to be able to have a publicist. So I would think about, and again, a lot of people won't agree with what I say because I'm a self-taught designer. So my walk is a little bit different. When I got started, I have a bachelor's degree in marketing. I went on Craigslist and I donated free rooms. And I would design a room for free and I would use that in order to build a portfolio. So that's how I started off like on a base level. Then from there, I think a lot of designers are arrogant, and I'll just say it. We're not there. And I'm not afraid to say I'm not there. I'm not Nate Burgess. I want to be Nate Burgess. I want to be the Property Brothers. But I think you need to have a real conversation with yourself about where you're at and where you want to be. So for me, it was, I want to do high-end design. So I found an interior designer who actually did the staging for luxury brand designers for show houses. And then I asked her, I said, my portfolio is not where it needs to be. I'm designing rooms for $5,000. I'm still going to Home Goods. And so, that was a splurge. Home Goods was a splurge. So I said, can I use your designs that we do together collectively, list myself as the design assistant, not taking credit, but saying design assistant. And I think a lot of times, like, designers need to step back. And if you're not ready and if you're not there, it is not your time. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think in this industry with Instagram, everybody's so caught up in like building these brands and making it seem like you're bigger than what you are. And I'm guilty of it too. But there's a time and there's a place for it. And it takes time. And so for me, it was, getting into that world of show houses. Now I have the spaces. I use those designs and I've marched into, I will never forget this, in New York, there were over 2,000 people who applied for HGTV design stars like Project Mormon. And they chose 2 of us out of 2,000 people. And the thing that they loved about me, out of those 2,000 people, they chose 2 of us. It was the fact that, I was able to build a brand off of Craigslist. And I think, it's just surrounding yourself with the right mentor and owning the fact that, maybe it's not your time, but building it till you get to that place. And then once you're ready, take it to a publicist. And then you say, I am ready, to do my first show house. I will hands down always say that a show house, I feel, is the best way for interior designers to break into the market where you can make real money. My show house that I did the Lake Forest show house in Chicago, Illinois, and that was the first show house where I got a client where I had a 6-figure budget. And this is just in like 2014. So it wasn't that long ago, but it was just me stepping outside of me and saying, you're not there yet. Get a publicist who can help you. But it was those building blocks. It was Craigslist. Like I could tell you a whole Craigslist story on how my career was built, but I think designers have to get out of their own ego and own the fact that maybe you aren't ready. And your time will come, but you gotta be patient.
That's really good. That's really awesome advice. And as I told you, everybody, we joked about it earlier, starting from the bottom, and however, fake it till you make it, whatever you gotta do to get there. But you also have goals. You want to grow your brand to this point. And I think that this is where, pulling it back a little bit and talking about marketing and branding, where Anastasia, for designers just getting started, and you made me think about it because we talked about hiring a professional photographer, and even if it's your best friend's living room, just taking vignettes and taking pictures of the space and switching stuff out and building that brand for yourself to get those clients. Can you tell us how, Anastasia, to position yourself as high-end without an entirely professionally photographed portfolio?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is kind of my specialty. First thing first is treat your brand as the brand you want your brand to be. So I don't care if you have not had a paying client yet, do not post an image on Instagram that would not go in a high-end brand portfolio. So if that means you trade doing the interior design for a photographer friend's living room for her to shoot it for you, that's what you do, but it's a professionally shot image. So there are creative ways to make that happen without having a full remodel, but you need to take it very seriously that those are the images that you're sharing, because until you start putting yourself out there as a luxury high-end brand or a full-service designer or specializing in luxury e-design, it doesn't even need to be a full-scale remodel. That's not the definition of a high-end designer. Whatever that scale is, just be thinking about every single thing you put out there. What would your business be putting out there in 3 years, and just start doing it now.
That's awesome. So, we are really curious, after designers know how much money to set aside, which you talked about, every month for marketing, what should designers be spending their marketing budget on?
Okay, so I am partial to Instagram. I have like a dozen clients in the audience right now, and then of course Lindsey as well. So thank you guys for being here. But we've just seen a lot of success in Instagram because it is such a visual platform. Depending on what type of business you have, if you only work exclusively with local clientele, we might take a different approach, but I would say take your marketing dollars and make sure that you have a great brand and website first and foremost. It doesn't mean anything if you're investing in Instagram and professional photography. If you're directing people to somewhere that doesn't look professional, you're just cutting yourself down. So make sure that your destination of your brand is on point. And once you've had that investment made, then you can go in and start outsourcing the things you don't have time to do every single day. And so for a lot of my designers, that is Instagram, or that is project reveal blogs, because they're already, by the time you get your photos back and after you've actually shot a property, you're 3 more projects down the line. You don't have time to go back and talk about that. Pitching your project reveals to press and getting that out there, that's something you can outsource. That's something we do at Identite, and that's something that's what's going to take you to that next level. And we're in a really interesting time when content has moved so digital. Publishers are hungry for content. I mean, they have to push out content 2, 3, 4 times a day now. So we're in a different space where you have a lot higher chance of getting your work picked up by a publisher for these online blogs and even print publications, because the demand for media is so much higher than it was 5 or 10 years ago.
That makes sense. And tell us, sorry, I have a lot of questions for you because you're such an expert. I don't want to make this conversation about social media. If you guys do have questions, come to Palette Check. We can ask Anastasia everything and pick her brain. But tell us a little bit, because I know for some of your clients, I've seen you do this, how can you create a sales funnel in the most unexpected ways, where when I look at designers today and we start talking about social media, and they just can't even focus, on what's happening. So, and at the end of the day, we're talking about profitability. So talk to me a little bit about that sales funnel.
Okay, so we actually were just talking about this at dinner last night, because someone reached out to Lindsey and was like, oh my gosh, I saw you liked and commented on one of my photos. It was a preschool in her target market. So my team literally goes and likes and comments in your target market to start getting some visibility with people who are not necessarily other interior designers who follow you all the time. It's about thinking about where you're on. With some of my designers is we will disclose 2 or 3 sources from a project or similar items, so someone can start to feel like they're getting value from you, and you're building that trust with your brand, so that when they are ready to make the investment of a full-scale redesign, or they bought that new home, or they bought that second home, you're top of mind. So you just want to be thinking, as a designer, you are in it for the long haul with people. This is a long-term relationship you're building with people online, so you need to be thinking about it that way. We're not a click to add to cart kind of industry. People can't just say, yes, design my whole house, here is $200,000. So you're in it for the long haul, and it's just about building brand trust and putting out consistent content to create that sales funnel.
Well, and also making sure people feel like they know you. So many of my clients, I get 90% of my business probably from Instagram, and they come to me because they feel like they know me. I probably talk to them in DMs because so many people will say, you know, hey, what's your favorite white paint? Or I have, you know, they'll send me a picture of their room and say, does this, you know, artwork go here? And it's like, do I really want to be answering those questions because I actually charge, you know, that for my clients? No, but, you know, I've done that a few times, and guess what? Those have turned into clients that I'm remodeling their whole home. Because I'm giving just a little bit of piece of me. And I'm obtainable to them, and I'm approachable, and they want that in their design. We are doing something in an intimate space with them. We're in their home, and, you know, we sometimes play therapist to couples, and so they have to feel comfortable with you. And if you don't show that in the way you're marketing yourself, I mean, especially for me, it won't work for the clientele that I work with, which is a lot of families, and a lot of time, you know, they relate to me because I have a family, and I have a client right now who actually worked with a designer on her last home who wasn't a mom and was sourcing these fabrics that I would never source for someone with toddlers. And it's because I have toddlers and they have ruined my own stuff, and I go, okay, I'm not gonna put that in someone's home. And so they come to me and they go, you get my lifestyle. And you have to kind of portray that as how you wanna market yourself too. I'm not afraid to talk about being a mom and talk about what I put in my own house and where I'm gonna spend money and where I'm not gonna spend money, but that is, you have to think about that as you market yourself and what you put on social media too.
And diving even deeper into that, Lindsey, it's funny because that was kind of my next question is, and I've seen people do this, I've seen people try to outsource social media and then they like have these captions and they're not really saying anything, they're just posting the post and there's no intention behind it. And it's like, yeah, they're posting, they're doing what they should be doing, but it's not intentional. How can you speak to, and because you have a very unique voice on Instagram, how you want to understanding your voice? Is it based on your personal style, or was it a project that led to your design aesthetic? And talk to us a little bit about the evolution. Like if we looked at your Instagram 2 years ago to what your Instagram looks like now, because I know that really played a key role in you taking your business to that next level.
I mean, this sounds so stupid, but I just try to always be myself. And again, just really approachable. And I have always tried to think of who are the people that I follow on Instagram that I really like, that I keep going back to? What makes them interesting? Is it because they're really funny, or is it because they're showing everyday life and I relate to that? Whatever it is, I wanted to make sure that I had something interesting to say, and that I always had a story behind it. So it's not just, hey, look at this pretty room I did. I tried to find a piece that would make it interesting. So whether it's where we source something, or how, you know, that maybe that was her great-grandfather's and it was like always in storage, and how we were able to blend it in with the rest of the stuff. Or how, you know, like I had literally 2 clients that, one client literally bought the other client's house, and I ended up randomly doing both of their spaces. And so I talked about that because it's an interesting piece of information. Now, whether, you know, everyone finds that interesting is a different story, but it's not just, hey, look at this house and look at how pretty, you know, I made it, because it's art and it's objective. So you might not feel that space is as pretty as I think it is, but maybe you'll relate to the story behind it. And so it was really important for me to always kind of have that voice. And then as I started talking with more designers and building my tribe, I really have always felt really passionate about the business side of it, because I think that for me that was the hardest. The design part was easy, and like figuring all that stuff is easy to me, but the business part of it, there's no handbook for designers, and so it's really trying to, like, for me, give back a little bit. And when I was outsourcing, you know, my social media, it took me a really long time, and that's one thing that I connected with Anastasia, is because I started following her and I really liked her voice and what she was saying. And she was doing the same thing with her business as I was doing with mine, but it was obviously just with marketing and not necessarily interior design. And so when we had that first initial conversation, the first thing I said was, I do not want to lose my voice if I hand it over, but I do like the voice that she had on Instagram, and I connected with her on a personal level. I think that if I didn't connect to her Instagram personally, it would never have worked. Does that make sense? And she gets my voice. So I feel like it's not really lost, even though she might be doing the work. No.
I think, so we have a copywriting team that helps me write content for all of our designers over the month. One of the first things that I taught them, and I think you guys can take this and implement it today when you do your next Instagram post, is think of writing your Instagram post as speaking to one single person. It takes a lot of the scary out of it. When you're like, how would I text my friend and say this? That's how you should be writing your captions.
Yeah, you don't need to overthink it.
Right. Pretend like you were speaking to just one person instead of your 580 followers or 30,000 followers. Suddenly, you sound way more approachable and, most importantly, more like you. It doesn't need to be even some of my more formal clients who don't show their kids on their Instagram stories or don't. They just kind of keep it a more formal mentality. We're still writing for them as if we're speaking to one person, and I think that really has helped them grow exponentially, and people can connect to it because when they read it, they're like, oh, Lindsey's talking to me. I get this. I'm connecting with her. This isn't like a mass advertisement. So if you can just make that one mindset, you'll start to see a change in your engagement rates, in your likes, in your follows, in your DMs, and then your inquiries so much faster.
Very true. And then I know we're talking a lot about Instagram, but I do want to emphasize, and I know we talked about this, like Instagram is just one piece. You can easily recycle that content and use it on your blog and cross-post and turn it into a newsletter, and just really staying on brand. And if you don't know what that means, then you should talk to somebody in the industry that can help you really figure out what your brand is. But that's how you're going to find the clients that you want. That's really at the end of the day. And again, we're just talking about Instagram. It doesn't mean Instagram's not your thing. It doesn't mean you have to do Instagram. You have to find the thing that works for you. But in talking earlier, Mikel, we talked a little bit about like collaborating with brands as not only just an influencer, but also talked a little bit about passive income and licensing. And I don't want to, there's a lot of questions, but I know that you do have some licensing deals. So how have you really built that relationship with brands, and what in your business has led you to working directly with brands?
I think the biggest thing for me is taking advantage of like situations like market and being very strategic. You know, it's pinpointing those brands who are in line in terms of like my design aesthetic, where I'm never pushing. Everything is always just a quick conversation. You know, I'll talk to the owner of the showroom, and then I will take it then to my manager, who will approach them, with a specific opportunity, which generally works for me. I mean, I think my brand is a little bit different because when I go on television, I applaud you all because I can't respond to all of the requests I get, because when I go on television, it's a little bit different because I'm showing people how you can design everything for less than $1,000. So as soon as I go on the Steve Harvey show or Rachel Ray show, I'm going to get 100 emails or DMs about random stuff like, what should I do with this home goods business? Like, I can't respond to it at all. But it's a balancing act. But what I do try to do is I try to find brands that, for me, I toy between luxury market, but also I have to be more approachable because the people who are watching daytime television, which is my genre, they're like, for them, $60 is a lot. If they're spending $60 on an item, they have to love it. So it's me being able to pinpoint brands that, one, can meet what I'm looking for price point wise, but also something where I can put my name behind it and it's not embarrassing at the same time. Like when I knock on it, it shouldn't sound hollow. So but a lot of it honestly is just me doing the work. My publicist and my manager, I come to them with opportunities, and they take it and they take it a step forward for me, and they make that initial conversation. Because I'll be honest, like, yes, it helps when you say you have a publicist, and they're making those phone calls for you because it gives you a bigger voice, a bigger presence. And I think for me, especially someone who my Instagram numbers are not where they need to be, But what has helped me is having those people behind me, backing me to say, you know what, you need to stand behind him and go with it from there.
And I think the takeaway there is it depends what your end goal is, like getting to market, networking, meeting editors. There might be some editors in the crowd today. You never know who you're going to meet, where you go, and just introducing yourself and having those conversations. There's different ways to write a press pitch, and you could even start very organically by you pitching that to editors. And we've done a couple webinars with different editors from different publications on what they're looking for, and making sure that just how you would present stuff to your clients, that you're presenting your package to these editors in a very concise, cohesive, professional way. I met with an editor last week, and she was like, "You wouldn't believe the stuff that I send." So, and using ideas of education as a piece of resources and education, or leaning all out to Lindsey, who's a mentor in the industry, and somebody else like, "Hey, I don't know how to put this together," or reading Amy Fleury's book, or something like that, whatever it may be. Amy Fleury also gives you all of the editor's contacts list. It literally costs $75. You just click on it, and no way, this is not sponsored by Amy Fleury, but I'm saying this, but it's very easy to put yourself out there and really gain press and take your business whichever way you want to go. If you want to get featured in Rue, if you want to.
You can also, again, DM these people on Instagram and say, "Hey, who do I send press inquiries to?" More than likely, they're going to send you the email that you need to get it to. Now, whether that's a general email or an actual person is a different story, but it's a place to start. And you just can't be afraid to put yourself out there in that way. And, maybe you get it and maybe you don't. But if it sounds so cliche, but if you don't try, it's like...
Yeah, and even the other thing we talked about last week is using the hashtag #SoDominant, or whatever it could be, because then it's popping up. They have like 2 million pictures in their feed, and you've written a nice post about what hashtags interior designers should be using. Like, there's resources out there for you to take advantage of it, and if you don't have time, you can hire somebody that costs a little bit less, and you can figure out ways to offset those costs and what you're billing out to your clients. The other thing I want to touch on, and then we're going to take questions in just a second, is I know that this is like, I don't want to open a can of worms, but I do want to touch on it. Affiliate links. Like, does it actually, and is that something, if designers obviously have a very branded Instagram, like, can designers actually make money from this? Is this something that designers should have on the radar? And Anastasia, obviously it's
Okay, well, yes, it is. It depends on how you've really cultivated your community of followers, whether that's on Pinterest or Facebook or your mailing list. Quality is always more important than quantity, because with 30,000 followers and I link to a pillow, if only 2 people swipe up because there's not that trust and community behind it, that is no more valuable than when I had 10 followers and all 8 of my girls swiped up and bought that pillow. So there is a lot of value in affiliate links, and it doesn't matter if you have 30,000 or 300,000 followers or 300. It's about using your eye that is unique to you. As Lindsey had said, we're all working with the same stuff, but it's about how you curate it and present that to your following that people respect and admire, and whether it's other designers swiping up to use those links or clicking over from your Pinterest where you've pinned a curated group of items, those numbers all come in as revenue, and especially Pinterest, it is a long opportunity for revenue on Pinterest because those pins list for forever. As soon as someone, 6 months down the road, someone could have pinned that chair that you forgot about when you blogged about it months ago, and that chair earned you $180 just from that one person purchasing it. The other thing to remember with affiliate links is you get commission off of the entire purchase someone makes from that one link. So whether they bought the pillow you linked to or not, let's say they bought a throw blanket, a table, and 2 chairs, but they didn't even buy your pillow, as long as they got to that website using your affiliate link, you make commission on that. So there's a lot of opportunity. It comes down to a question as a designer and kind of where you are in your business of, do you want to be sharing those sources or lookalike sources for all of your projects? that's a personal choice you have to decide, because are you taking away the value to your custom bespoke design clients because you're now giving it out for free? Or are you newer in the industry and this is how you're building notoriety because people want to follow you to follow this eye, and that's a great revenue stream. So I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but it needs to be a conscious choice, and to really see that return come in using something like reward style or becoming an affiliate with certain manufacturers and wholesalers. It's going to be something that needs to be consistent, and
You need to have a plan.
There needs
You
to be
just like, I mean, I feel like it as a brand, I mean, we've talked about this, that like you don't want to just like every now and then throw up things, or you don't want to do it where like, you know, there's been a lot of times where I've skipped over designers because it's like every story is a swipe up thing, and I don't want to come off too salesy, and there's a lot of people on Instagram that are like that, but I think whether you do that or not, I mean, they probably make a lot of money doing it that way, which is great, but I think that you just need to have a plan. You need to figure out how you're going to use them and then be consistent with it.
And if you're making your plan for Pinterest, because that's not annoying seeing all of those things.
Exactly.
Just
Extra special secret there. And I know we could talk about this for so long, and there's so many different things. What we wanted to give you today was some actionable steps that you can take home and that you can think about, and keywords. You can write them on a post-it next to your computer and think about those words when you're feeling overwhelmed. And of course, I'm gonna take like a couple questions, but then you guys can ask Lindsey and Anastasia and Mikel anything and everything you want, just upstairs with drinks and food and all that fun stuff. So does anybody have any questions for us? Do you want to yell or do you want me to bring the microphone?
I could yell.
Okay.
This question's for Lindsey. We both work with the amazing photographer Amy Bartlam. How do you think hiring a professional photographer has boosted your profitability?
So I'm going to repeat the question so everybody can hear us in the back. How do you think working with a professional photographer has boosted your profitability?
Well, it's made me look more professional from the very beginning. I've always used a professional photographer, and now I build that into, you know, the clients and their project. But I think that it's really important because it just sets the tone for who's looking at you. So for me, Instagram is free, and it's free marketing, and you have to use it to your advantage. And so I had to make sure that everything that I was posting was professional, or, you know, seemed professional. And before I worked with Amy, I traded with a wedding photographer who kind of did some real estate stuff, and I did a design for his, you know, new condo that he purchased, and he photographed a few of my projects. And then from there I was like, okay, I was now making enough money in projects where I was like, I really need to hire somebody who knows how to shoot interiors, and let me tell you, it is a very big difference, and you need to hire somebody who understands that. You need to also utilize it to its fullest. So most photographers will have day rates or half day rates, and sometimes, you know, you're shooting one bathroom that will maybe only take an hour to shoot, but then you need to bring in other accessories and maybe do the styling a whole different way. So you're creating that content and you're getting the your money's worth. I think that it's also really important to find a photographer who you connect with and to be very involved. I fortunately love photography and almost went to school for photography, so I feel, you know, Amy's not here to, you know, see if it's annoying or not, but I'm very much of like, let's get this shot. I want, you know, these are the shots that I like, or I'm thinking of, okay, let's do a wide shot and then let's do a close-up shot, because I'm always thinking of content too. And like, how can I reuse this without it just being the exact same picture? Or how can I use this to maybe collaborate with brands? And I can take a really pretty picture of the tile close-up, and then I can reach out to that tile company and say, hey, listen, I used your tile in the bathroom and I have really awesome photos, so let's work together. Or, hey, forehands, I have, you know, this awesome sofa that I used in my client's house, and let's figure out how we can work together. And you're just getting yourself, you know, see more. They will only work with you if you have professional photography. A lot of press will only showcase you if it's professional photography. And so I think for me, it was the number one thing that I put my money into. It's my marketing budget, and I have to always think of, okay, if I'm going to have 20 clients this year, how much is that going to cost me in photography? And it's so important. I can't stress it.
And I think what I'm hearing you say a lot over and over again is working smarter, not harder. And I think that that's the tone that everybody should take into 2019 is, okay, I'm doing this and I'm paying a photographer. How can I make this the biggest return on investment for me and create content? Just create content. All the time you should be creating content. Yeah, go ahead.
Lindsey does a great job. Whenever she's on a shoot, they shoot, I don't know, a dozen headshots, like lifestyle-y type headshots, while they're doing a shoot on a project. And that just like builds our, I call it kind of like our stock photo pile that we have to leverage. But I mean, like she shoots up every time. In addition to styling the room more than one way, which stretches that content because
you can't be afraid to be in front of the camera. People want to see your face. They want to relate to you. And you, as scary as it is, believe me, stories are scary, but you have to do it and you have to be in front of the camera.
You are your brand. Like, you are your brand, and 100%, that's what's made you relatable, and that's what's helped you get, I mean, Instagram has driven so much of your business in particular. I'm not saying for everybody that's going to drive your business.
It doesn't matter. It can be on your website. It can, you know, I think a lot of my clients go, oh, like, you know, why do you look so familiar? Oh, I follow you on Instagram, you know, and they feel like they know you. If you know, again, it comes down to you're in an intimate space, you want to feel like you know that person, you need to put a face to that name. And I think that whether it's a blurry photo of you, you can be artistic with it, or you can be styling something people need to see.
A blurry professional photo.
A blurry professional photo. Yes. Yes. Out of focus, thank you. But I think that it's just very important. And, you know, now that I have, you know, team members, it's very important to show I have a team. So I can take on bigger projects. I can take on a whole house because it's not just me. And so the last photo shoot we did, my project manager stepped in, we got headshots, we did...
Write this one down, guys. The ratio we use for all of our clients is we make sure there is a headshot, so they are physically in an image, at least one every 9 images. So when you land on their feed, you see their face in the top 9 somewhere. So that's just like a really good thing to remember. It doesn't have to be every other picture, but one every 9 needs to be a picture of you or your team or some physical person.
Okay, that's amazing feedback. Anybody else have any questions? Yes, Lisa, you want to run the microphone over to her? Right there, Lisa, right there. Right there.
So going back to saying no, once we understand when to say no and that a project is not a good fit for us or our brand, can you talk about how to say no? Do you have any talking points?
I have a 6-month waiting list.
That's a tricky question.
Our aesthetics don't meet up. You will not get the best of me if I'm not. You have to be honest. I recently tried to fire a client because our aesthetics are not lining up, and they're only going to waste money because it's going to take me forever to try to figure out what they really want from me.
I have boilerplate emails that my team has, so once we get an inquiry, if we realize it's not a good fit, we have a list of a dozen other designers who have services similar to my own that we can then go through and curate. It's a much warmer welcome to be denied. What to say, I don't think we're the best fit based on our timeline, budget. You don't
Here's
have
someone
aesthetic,
else.
but I think this person matches your style great. And you know what? I just checked, and I think they have a quicker availability. I think you should reach out to them. I'd love for you to tell them I sent you. And that's just a much friendlier and more welcome. They feel like you serve them well, and they'll remember that next time they need to make a recommendation or a referral.
And then my question I was going to ask is it a matter of time or budget? Because I think that's the other...
Yeah, setting your minimums. Figuring out what kind of clients you want. Do you want somebody that's going to be, you know, do you want to do at least 3 rooms at a time? Figure out how long it takes you to design 1 room. Times by 3, say I have a 60-hour minimum. So your one living room doesn't meet that. You know?
For me, I can only take on, like, I was telling Anastasia, like right now, I only do clients that I know will get me published, or I have to like really love that client, just because I don't have the time to like spend on that.
And that those clients are willing to be published.
Yes.
That's a great vetting system. Are they willing to put their house in price?
Absolutely. So for me, and I know I keep talking about show houses. I felt like for me, show house is just the smartest way to get your work out there. These people have the disposable income to afford those spaces. They can afford those $30,000 books. Like they can do it. And so I think like even now, like I agree with you 100%. A lot of times what happens with me is when I have someone who reaches out, we'll send them, my assistant will send them a package which has my prices. Once they see those prices, they know really quickly they made that decision, so it takes that hard guessworking out for me as to, ooh, how do I say this? It's like, oh, sure. Like sometimes I know they can't afford the service, but I'm like, you know what? We're going to send you the information about our services. Here is our menu of services and our price options. And then 9 out of 10 times, that takes the dirty work out of my hands because they've decided, you know what, this isn't for me anymore.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, you guys. I know you guys probably have more questions. A couple of key things I want you to remind yourself daily, and that we talked about today, is really leveraging technology as a whole to get yourself to that profitability. For most designers, it should be that 40% gross profit margin, but we'll talk about it more. Come to Palette Check, right? Literally just take the escalators up here, 2 stories, and we'll be directing traffic as well. And Lindsay, everybody will be there so that you guys can ask more questions. And thank you again to Vegas Market and Duo, and come visit us.